I think, in that process. So one of the things on the scam idea that I really want people to be mindful about are investors. Investors will come out of the woodwork right now, and make sure you know what you're getting in bed with if you utilize an investor. It's common that in times where we are in a financial situation in our communities, especially when our government has already stepped in one aspect or another. We saw this back in '09 as well. Investors will kind of come out of the woodwork to offer some assistance. And I'm not saying that all investors are bad or there's a negative to investors. There is a strength to investors in businesses. My biggest thing from the scam side is making sure you know what you're giving up when you are partnering with an investor. We see investors that, and I'll be honest, I use my dad as an example every time. My dad was a VP at Boeing for 40 years. He's retired. He the other night was like, I'd probably turn some of my assets into cash. And I was like, Dad, knock it off. Because people are going to be hurting. People are going to be in situations where they need cash or they need strength, they need numbers. And so investors will come out in this moment and offer that. Just make sure you know what you're giving up. A lot of times with investors, you're receiving usually a cash asset in that moment, but you're usually giving up shares or percentage of future revenue streams. And when you think about that today, that doesn't look scary. You're like, well, we're not making any money anyways. They're going to be the one at loss. But 3 years from now, you're still going to be in bed with them if you're not careful what you get into. And so make sure that that is something that you know what the long term looks like. You know what the succession plan back out of the investor looks like in the event that futuristically you want to get rid of them. How do you get rid of them? How do you remove them? How do you buy them out? So, and what is going to be the dollar amount at that time, consecutively. So that was one of the things I want people to be really mindful about is people will come to offer help. I mean, help's going to be out there, whether it's government, federal, state, local communities, but there will also be this third avenue of the people trying to get some ownership into businesses, because businesses will eventually bounce back. And that's where the investor buys in low and then 3 years from now is receiving large gain from that. So that was the side I wanted to be. Also, make sure anything that you're getting into where they're sending money, offering money, or anything from there, that you know the company that's offering it. Are they reliable? Do they steward well? Are they somebody that you want your name tied to? Because that's going to be a big issue if something goes negative. If it's government funding, these are areas where the government's offering some options and packages out there. Just make sure you're aware, is that being ran through your bank? Like example, PPP. Well, that's being ran through your bank, but it's still federally regulated at your bank's discretion. Who are you supposed to be talking to? Where is that connection? So make sure with your business bankers or anybody you're getting any type of funding and financial support from that they're reliable. You have that relationship. If not, shop around. Banks are intrigued at this point to do business. They really want to keep people rolling. My next idea was opportunity. Right now, we're going to see lots of opportunity on the flip side of this for businesses to grow. If you are cash stable, if you are secure, there's going to be some big movements ahead. I think one of the things, technology, we're going to get a launch technology in a whole new way that some companies have, but now everyone has been exposed to, and there's going to be some usefulness in that. How do we use that financially? Maybe we change the way we're doing our accounting, our books. Maybe the companies that we're plugged in with, we're doing stuff ACH, bill pay. If a client owes us money, maybe we're drawing that out instead of waiting for them to mail checks, because it's a lot easy to introduce the idea of technology usage, because now we've all been thrown in it. We're all swimming one way or another. So those are some ideas. The other thing is, if you're looking for funding, now is the opportunity where there's great options for funding. SBA, has now really moved forward with the larger portions of the EDIF loans. Those are 30-year terms with pretty low rates. Is that something that if you already knew you were going to be borrowing money futuristically, is now the time to borrow it from that program because they're offering better rates than you were comparing. The other thing is banks will be fighting for your business. I just had a guy in here in my office yesterday and he said, well, I talked to one bank and I told him I want you to call 4 banks. And he said, by the time it was said and done, the first bank called me back and said, what'd you find out from the other banks? Because they won his business. And so now all of a sudden we have some percentage wars. We're down a full percent between the 4 banks fighting back and forth on some funding. So make sure you're challenging those relationships a little bit. Some will come with moving banks if you utilize their funding. So know if you're ready to get in that situation. I don't necessarily want to move my operating account to go to a new bank, but for 2%, I might be willing, depending on the amount of money that I'm funding. So now is going to be some opportunity where money is out there. It's going to be available in many different streams. I don't want to see people taking unnecessary funding. If you weren't looking to fund 60 days ago, unless it's to protect you and keep you afloat, maybe you don't want to take unnecessary funding. But for us, we were already looking to buy a commercial building. My rates look a lot different today than they did 60 days ago. And so I'm able to kind of utilize some funding that before I was going to use cash. Well, it doesn't, there may not be the same benefits. So make sure you're comparing those. The other thing is compare long term. See what 30-year term looks like versus 20-year term. Or we all know the fundamentals of how we pay, and cash flow changes how much overall we pay for something, but be watching that during this time as well. One of the things on risks I want to be mindful about as business owners receiving revenue, one of the big risks you guys are going to see is a slowdown in payables and receivables. People just aren't going to pay as fast as they even were before. It's going to take a little longer for somebody to get the funds to then move it to paying you. I think there's going to be I have clients that have paid well every single time they get a bill. Now they're like, can I wait 30 days? Well, they've never asked me that in 5 years, but there's a fear of moving cash at this point, that there's some psychology behind that. I think we're going to have to know as business owners, when I mail an invoice out, there may be that fear, and they want to know that they're safe cash flow wise before they start sending funds out. So another way that I think you can overcome that is more of that ACH approach of like, hey, we'll send out invoices, 10 days later we'll withdraw. Are you guys good with that? Not all businesses can do that. I understand not all businesses have hands-on people that can be flowing through that money. I get that too. And not everybody's going to say yes. But there is the ability to ask. More and more companies are happy with ACH, so they don't have to pay it. They don't have to write checks. They're not mailing anything. And most are pretty willing. It's just going to be a matter of detailing those terms that everybody's in agreement for. I think one other thing is making sure you're watching your cash flow as you receive money in. The trickle effect is going to happen and somebody's going to be at the bottom. So I'm going to use just a couple of names here on the screen because it's a good example. If the Chamber of Commerce, Becky sends me out an invoice for my member fees, and then I'm going to wait until Chief Keller, I'm going to use you because you're not going to pay me. Chief Keller pays his bill to me. And then after that, I'm going to then come back and pay Becky. Somebody's going to be at the bottom of that at all times. And so the delays are going to get a little further between in that processing of cash. So make sure you're safe. Make sure that you know your cash flow structure well enough to know, hey, if I was previously paying all my payables in 30 days, do I need to bump them out 45? And if I need to bump them out 45, do I just need to get a hold of my vendors and let them know, hey, Becky, I'm going to actually not pay my invoice. It's going to be 2 weeks delayed past when originally you would see it paid the day I get my bill type thing. So I think that's something communicating. Most vendors are going to be pretty good about it, but I do think where we can over communicate that continues to build those safe and secure relationships inside of most businesses. I know I kind of did that in backwards order from introducing myself. I think some of you really kind of know me, but I will go back and introduce myself. Actually, I had wrote that on the bottom of my page, so it's like the last thing I was going to do. My name is Nicki Clem. I own Bookkeeping and Beyond, and we are a full-service accounting firm here in Andover. We're located in Teradyne Country Club up on the second floor. And prior to this, I actually was in private law for 10 years and decided I wanted to work with small business owners. When I changed careers, went back to college in my 30s, and just decided that most small business owners did not feel empowered to utilize a large accounting firm, or if they did, it just looked different. I wanted to be very relational. Some of my clients probably feel like I'm all up in their business, but I love the idea of building that relationship, because then what we can do is we can turn your lifestyle and your business tactics into tax planning and tax preparing for tax season. So most of our clients we work with throughout the year ahead of time, so we know what tax season will really look like. We believe that you should be controlling your tax situation, not the opposite. We should not all be sitting around on May 22nd like, well, I just got my taxes done and here's what happened to me. Instead, we like to take a proactive approach of what are our goals, what are our plans, and then if in November and December we're outside of that scope, how do we empower and teach you spend the money on business expenses, purchase depreciable assets. What are those things that are needed next? Maybe that's a time to hire new employees or not. So that's really where we're passionate about being all involved. My heart is to be a teacher. I really love to empower both men and business women owners, but I love to see women step out and decide that they can do it. I was raised by a Marine Corps dad who didn't totally believe that we could. So it's kind of fun to get to work in that industry. And of course, I'm old enough now that even the Marine Corps changed. They empower women like crazy, but it wasn't that way 40 years ago. And so something where I just love community. We believe we're Christ followers, and we believe that doing life and business and community together all plays into one total equation. So I have a staff with me full-time. So I have 2 full-time staff members, myself full-time, and then we have 1 part-time associate in the office. So there's 4 of us. And then we have actually 2 business guys who work collaboratively with us. And there's 2 of them in our office as well. So we're growing in our little space well, and currently working on a move just outside of Teradyne into our own private building here in the year 2020. So we are excited about the growth. We've loved getting to know people in the community. I actually live in Augusta, so coming into the Andover area was a little intimidating at first, but I didn't want my professional and personal life in the same block. So we've been welcomed with open arms. I've been here in Teradyne for 4 years and have absolutely loved every part of being part of Andover and the small business community that we have.
Well, thanks, Nicki. Does anybody have any questions for her? She gave a lot of good information. I know one of the things that we're seeing as far as the chamber's concerned is that lag time in the payment of the membership. And you know, you just have to be acceptable of that, because everybody has to do business. They have to make sure that their business is secure and all that kind of stuff. So we just don't want them to forget about us too. So
right, and I think that's where your receivables department has to be really on top of that. We have to know the balance between grace and patience, and we still have to be collecting. We can't ignore it either. So I do think there's a balance in there. And sometimes it's a personal touch. We've noticed that if Kennedy will reach out and say, hey guys, we just wanted to follow up and make sure you're doing okay. Oh my gosh, we forgot. Can we pay it over the phone?
Right.
Sometimes it's just that touch or a card in the mail. And I mean, I know we're all busy. We've all been swamped by something we didn't see coming. But I do think that the receivable side of your company has to still be very proactive with a graceful, and it's all about approach. How do we do a soft touch but still follow up on those payments? Because people want to pay their bills. Most of us aren't dealing with businesses that we're like, we hate doing business with them. Well, quit doing business with them. Most of us have that ability. But I do think it comes with approach. We were just discussing the security guard at Lowe's or Menards. One of them doesn't allow people under 16. Well, as my best friend was walking up with her teenage daughter, his approach was just gruff and aggressive and overbearing. And she said, had he said, hey guys, I just want to let you know, absolutely the game would have been different. But instead, everybody got fired up. If somebody calls my office and says, hey, Nikki, we had sent out an invoice. We want to make sure maybe you're not in the office, but what do we need to do to get in touch? That's going to look a whole lot different than Nikki didn't pay her bill. Like, everybody knows that's not my heart. So, coming at people in a loving acceptance, and we have a great excuse. Just want to make sure this is where the mail should go right now. We know everybody's been displaced with the coronavirus. That's easy enough to remind them. A quick email in that situation, people are like, oh, yeah, I didn't get it, I'll pay. Well, even if they got it or not, it just gives them a soft touch reminder.
I try to remind myself, because I say this, and Jody would probably remember when I said this in Leadership Butler, but you can't change how people react to what you say, but you can change what you say to where their reaction is different.
Absolutely.
So, it's just how you present it, how you bring it forth. So I try to remind myself of that. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but I try.
We all fall short. We all fall short. And that's where we come back with that, apology and ask for forgiveness. But I think as business owners, if we're mindful, because if we come from a place of fear, it's going to look a lot different as well. And so if we're fearful about our cash flow when we approach somebody about their bill, we have to be mindful. Where's our headspace? And if it's on Fridays, we're fearful because payroll's hitting, that looks a whole lot different than on Tuesdays when we're just following up when emotion isn't as high. The other thing we've done in my office is make it external. Another agent in my office handles that. She doesn't have any emotional tie to our checkbook. Her check's going to hit no matter what. And so sometimes it may take it away from the fear of the business owner if that's something that you struggle with. Giving it to somebody who doesn't have that emotional tie. We can never lose sight of the psychology behind money as business people, because it is a driving force. And if we're not in control of that, the person on the other end will sense that. And then do they want to do business with somebody who may not be secure financially as well? So then you spin up all kinds of, insecurities in the moment.
Yeah. And we noticed a lot of, some of our customers maybe hadn't been through any type of situation where they couldn't have paid their bills before. And so they had no idea how to react. And so we had people that I reached out, and they basically, the world revolves around them, and this is only happening to them, and we can't pay you, sorry. And but then once I, kind of just said, well, this is happening to all of us. So you may not be able to pay the whole bill now, but I would just like for you to look into, seeing what you can do over time, and don't forget about me, because we're a small family business too. And, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, I got been thinking about it, and I'm making payments, but the initial thing was, sorry, can't pay you. This is all happening, and I'm closing this and closing that. And, they just forget how to empathize that there's another human on the other side of that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get a little narrow focus because it is so personal and happening on a personal level that we don't really think about it happening to others as well. My story and your story is going to be different, but the reason or the cause is the same. So just trying to keep that in mind as you move forward, I think, is important. But when you talked about, Nikki, about the banks or the financial institutions kind of vying for your business, have any other of you seen that, or have you looked at your interest rate on your house? We're actually refinancing our home. It's coming down about 2%. So we're going with the same bank, but we're refinancing it. I don't know if anybody else has looked into that, but they are vying for your business.
Right. I haven't, but it's the stuff we thought about when all the interest rates were going crazy. We looked at everything, and we're considering that for sure. It's a good time to do that. Now, I like the idea about
it is
I like the
negotiable.
idea about
they'll
the
negotiate with you.
Right. I like the idea. I didn't think about it on the business side yet, though. I know that there's lots of loans out there, and that was one of the questions I had for you today. If you're taking questions, was on the on the PPP forgiveness. with all the loans that are out there, if you can't meet the forgiveness, there might be some other loans, and it's nice to think about how they probably are vying for everybody's business right now. But I didn't know the range of the forgiveness, like from what date of payroll and what date of the expenses do you have, like how far back do they start calculating until June 30th or whatever it is?
So what it is it's going from the date you are funded 8 weeks forward. So the date you get your money in your bank is your funding date, and you have 8 calendar weeks forward, and all that fall inside of that: payroll, rent, utilities, the qualifyings. And some of those have even been really opened up if the company, one of the things we just found out, if the company has leases on automobiles, that qualifies. And so there's really some open ends, but it is the date of the funding 8 weeks forward.
Okay, so I
And
got some mixed information about that, so I was just wanting to confirm.
yeah, the other thing is really know inside of the terms. Most of the banks issued the funding for this, and we didn't have the terms of forgiveness. That just came out last week from the SBA, and even most of our banks haven't released their forgiveness applications yet. So some of my clients are past the 8 weeks, and we can't apply for forgiveness yet because that hasn't started. So I do think that we're going to see more information gather over probably the next 2 to 4 weeks of what they're looking for to apply for that forgiveness, and what qualifies. Let's say you don't get any of it forgiven. Let's say during that process, everybody stayed laid off, you used the money in a different term. It's still a very cheap financing at 1%. If it kept your company afloat, 1% is way better than somebody charging up the corporate credit card in any situation. And so I've told people, don't necessarily be scared of if you didn't use all of that in 100% forgivable terms, because the other side is, if you had to use it to survive, that lending side of it is still so cheap, you can't get 1% money. It's just nowhere else.
Right. But it looks like they're doing a lot of really cool loans that have longer terms, that still have lower interest rates. So 1% is amazing. It's incredible. But since you only have like 2 years, that's kind of maybe not as great.
Well, and the EDIL one is a 30-year term, so it is significantly longer. It really cuts down your payment price. I think they all came in at 3.75. I think that was the standard. I don't think that was swayed in any way. I've done 3 of those this week. They were all for sure 3.75, but I think all of them came in as 3.75. So even at that, if you don't qualify for a loan anywhere else in 3.75, then that's pretty cheap lending if comparatively a commercial lender is offering 4 or 5% in any other situation.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Does anybody else have any questions for Nicki? Okay, is there anything anybody else wants to talk about while we're on here before we call it? So what's happening? Are you fully reopened and all of that? The chamber, we're staffed. We're not really opening the doors to anybody right now, but Holly's back, and it's kind of nice to have somebody back in the office. What about you? Are you all?
As far as Adias is concerned, we've consistently been open but not open, I guess, taking orders but not open fully. Most of my employees work about 1 day a week. And then we're actually starting this week. We started, working more part-time than just 1 day a week. And I don't know, we just hope, I'm pretty sure that right now we just aren't going to have the business to be able to open full-time. But I'm basically just floating my staff around to make sure we can service everybody the same as we always have.
Are orders still coming in? Orders still coming in?
I'm very thankful because we are, we have customers nationwide. And if it wasn't for that, then this would have been a lot harder.
Yeah.
I believe, just because our customer base fluctuates based on where, we were seeing a fluctuate in our business all over the place because, different states would start shutting down, and all of a sudden I'd see the orders stop there, and then another state would shut down. Now I'm seeing the same thing where it's like, oh, that state opened up first, and so we're getting orders more from there. So we kind of have been seeing a lot of that fluctuation, but we're just consistently as slow as we are through the year during our very slow time. So it hasn't been as bad as it could be. But we're excited for everybody to start opening back up. And I'm hoping, I don't know what everybody else feels like, but I'm feeling like July, people might start the beginnings of maybe what a small future looks like for people. I just feel like it's going to be July, not June,
I have to agree. I think that's going to be closer to July, may even go into August, but I think it's going to be, I think we need June to get through to see, kind of test the waters and see what it'll look like. But what about anybody else?
I do have to say people in general are, I'm loving that for the most part, everybody, feels in this together. And so everybody's so understanding of everybody's operating hours or, I think I mentioned this about a month ago, but like we opened up a pickup location at our new Andover location, which is my home office porch. And people have been really nice about that because if they can't meet the pickup times at Adidas downtown, they can come basically anytime and pick it up from my porch pickup.
And those of us utilizing that love the new location. Love the new location.
The location will always be available forever. So we're not closing that location.
Is everyone in here back to open? I guess Pat, I'm not sure if you guys, are you guys back to booking and scheduling and starting to do parties? Oh, you're muted.
I got you.
Okay.
Well, maybe not.
There we go. I got it myself.
Okay.
Yeah, the bookings are definitely slow, but amazingly, they're coming. You could see a definite rise as we got up when they announced the phase 1 opening, and then a decline right as soon as they hit 1.5. But we're still we're actually taking deposits for 2021 for weddings and stuff, which I think is going to be our bread and butter for a while, because I don't think companies and corporate structures and outdoor concerts and stuff like that are going to get going for quite some time. But I got a guy that hired me to come out to his 5 acres with our mobile genie truck, and that's actually here coming up soon, and a couple other smaller derby events that are coming in. So I agree though with Robin. I think that we'll have a couple in June. July looks to be, actually middle of the month looks to be pretty busy if everything is open back up, and then August we kind of hit it for the wedding season.
Yeah, I was hoping that you were starting, last time I was on one that you were talking, I was really hoping you were starting to see the bookings come back in and get you back on top there.
Yeah, I've been complaining for months that I've got nothing to do, and now I'm getting busier for July and August. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, every hairdresser that I have in my portfolio was so mad that they were forced to shut down, and now they're all so mad that they have so many appointments on their books. Like, nobody's ever happy here.
I did not add to that, so.
Yeah.
Becky, I know there's a couple people, and maybe, I don't know if you guys always do introductions on this one. I've been at a couple different things, but can everybody on introduce themselves? I know there's a couple people I don't know.
Sure. David, you want to start?
Hello. I'm David Norris. I'm the general manager at Flint Hills National Golf Club, and we are open with limited seating. We still have the limited spacing. I have not opened the outside patio due to some construction work. I did have an employee that might have a possible contact, and he is at home quarantining and waiting for the contact person to test. So that's our first close brush with COVID here. The lodges are fully booked, and we are on 7 days working. We're averaging about 110 golfers a day.
Wow.
We have that's an average. On Monday, we're open for a half day at 68. We've got people coming in from all over the country, just like normal. Our national members are coming in. So we are rocking and rolling.
Great.
And hiring.
Chief Keller.
Good morning, Mike Keller, Police Chief. We still continue to provide all law enforcement services. However, our facility, like all city facilities, are still closed to the public. It's my understanding we're looking at reopening them on hopefully June 8th when we move into phase 3 of the governor's reopen plan. And we've been working on what that's going to look like. We've been putting together plans on what that's going to look like when we do allow people to our facility.
Awesome. Phil Benedict.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Phil Benedict, the Executive Director of Thrive Butler, a poverty reduction initiative that serves all of Butler County, and we will be getting our classes reconvened the first week or two of June.
Great. Robin.
Hey guys, Robin Sagamane with Ideas Printing. And we provide anything from graphic design to printed brochures and door hangers to direct mail, banners, lawn signs. And we take orders offline we can call or email, and online. And we can schedule for appointments. And you guys already heard when we're opening, or we've been open this whole time. So, and also Andover pickup available. I want an Andover pickup customers. So good to see everybody.
Thanks, Robin. Rick.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. This is Rick. I'm the secretary of the RD nonprofit. We take care of the Redbud Trail from Prairie Creek Road to Highway 400. And because of the pandemic, we're seeing an awful lot of use on the trail and have for months. We've got a lot of exciting things happening right now. We've just been awarded a grant with the city of Andover to build a new restroom at the pavilion right there on Harrison, just off of Andover Road. We just installed a kind of little parklet type thing at Prairie Creek and 13th Street. And we've got a lot more plans in the offing. If you get out on the trail, be careful for a mile marker 2.5 to 3, because there's an immense growth of poison ivy. So that's all I got to tell you.
Thanks, Rick. Jody.
Jody O'Katie, Shelter Insurance. I have been open with the door locked, but I've been in my office for phone, and I was working by phone and email. We are now open to let people in one customer at a time, just to keep everybody safe and continue to respect the social distancing. So June 1st, we'll actually allow walk-ins back in. And then a friend of mine that's a teacher who's off for the summer is going to be here for June and July while I am trying to get back to finding full-time staff. So she will be helping me out, answering phones and helping with appointments, since we'll be back actually open now. So June 1st is our date, but I've been here every day, just trying to help people navigate these crazy times with insurance and, helping a lot of people, like, Robin was saying, a lot of people, this is the first time they've been out of work, or they've been furloughed, or they're working from home. Things are completely different, look different. And it affects insurance as well. So some people that were used to paying, every 6 months or paying yearly are now asking, what other payment plan options do we have? Can we do monthly? Can we do, what's my grace period? So a lot of that was just answering questions and servicing and helping people get through to where they can keep insurance, but we maybe need to do things a little different. So it's been steady, busy, not the busy that we normally see this time of year by any means at all. But I'm very grateful that I was able to stay open, very grateful that I was able to assist my people during this time. But June 1st, we'll be back, doors open, and hoping to hit the ground running. But I agree very much with Robin. I think it's going to be probably a July, August timeframe before we see things really pick up to what they're normally like this time of year.
Thank you, Jody. Troy Tabor.
Hi, I'm Troy Tabor. I'm on the City Council in Andover. We've had a lot going on, obviously, with the city. I think that Chief Keller had mentioned what we're doing right now as far as social distancing, what's open and what's not. And I guess that's it, unless you have any questions for me. It's good to see everybody on, for sure. See that people are getting back into the swing of things. Everything's a little bit different now, and it probably will be, but it's cool to see all the entrepreneurs out here making things work anyway.
Thanks, Troy.
Okay.
Pat.
Hello, I'm Pat. I'm the owner-operator of Shaken or Stirred Bartending, your locally and state licensed and insured liquor caterer, mobile bartending. We do about 45%, well, we did about 45% of our events for weddings. About another 30% after that was corporate events, and then we tried to reserve the last bit for offerings for fundraisers and nonprofits, so that we gave back there. Yeah, let us know. We actually have our mobile teeny, which is our vendor's truck that we just pull over and pop up. And then we have multiple mobile bars that we can set up indoors. Nicki, to ask you your question about before, and we were just talking, as we were speaking, I just got a note from my lead staff that the Kansas Wheat Festival has now been canceled out in Wellington. That was always a 3-day gig out there for us. So just another one of the pandemic's victims there. But,
is that usually in September, Pat?
No, it's usually July.
July.
And they have it going all week long. Not really sure how Wellington was the focal point for the Kansas Wheat Festival, but they always pulled in a pretty good crowd there, and they had some good bands. Last year was really good. Actually was the first or second event that we had our mobile truck out at. Get a lot of lessons out there. They do a pretty good job. The chamber out there, Becky, you probably know, just went under recent leadership change. Yep. But the new director and stuff like that seems energetic, and we had actually talked a few weeks ago, and they were hoping to still have it. So this was probably a recent decision on their point. They had bands lined up. The girl from Wellington that was on what's that show that just ended? American Idol. Yeah, they had her coming out and booked and stuff, so they were expecting a big crowd.
That's too bad. It's always sad when you hear another event being canceled, but probably for the best, unfortunately. But
I haven't heard, and maybe someone on here can answer, maybe Troy, but did they cancel the concert series out in Andover for this year, or are they waiting? Or are they doing it one by one?
We are still in discussions of that right now. So no, it has not been canceled at this point, but we're talking about what exactly is going to happen.
Okay.
I mean, we have made some decisions, but I don't know if they're public enough for me to talk about them. I see Mr. Keller saying what, but yeah, I don't think I can talk publicly about them yet.
well, they obviously have been pushed out a little bit anyway, because they started in June. That you probably won't have one in June, right?
We will not. That is correct.
So they probably, if they're going to have them, they're going to be pushed back a little bit.
Chief, I don't recall exactly what we can and can't talk about from that meeting. Do you?
Oh, I think you're right, Troy. I'm not sure. I think it's safe to say what Becky said, that there's not going to be one in June or July, at least that far out.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Holly.
And the Wellington Wheat Festival, that's the home to the Cow Patty Bingo Festival, Cow Patty Bingo there.
It is.
World famous.
It is. It is.
Can you explain how that works? Sorry, I'm just kidding.
Oh, go ahead. I think you all know me by now. I just came back to the office this week, so it's been a pleasure to get away from my kids for a little bit. Just trying to get back in the swing of things, and we don't have any events going on right now, so we've pushed the cornhole tournament back to September. So it's a little slow, but we're doing what we can to help everybody. That's about it.
Well, we're excited you pushed the cornhole tournament back because we loved it last year, and we had 2 clients marrying each other on the tournament this year. So we're very excited that it got moved.
Awesome.
We do not want to miss it. We've been practicing with our boards we won last year, so we're ready for the game.
Perfect.
We're gonna need to borrow those boards, by the way. But well, thank you all for coming on. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that's happening. We've got, as I said, we're going to still do these on a weekly basis, but we're going to bring in somebody to talk every week. So we're looking for some people for the next couple of weeks. So if you have somebody in mind that could give some great information to our business community. The other thing that I'd like to say is that if you enjoyed this, please let people know so we get more people involved in this. It's good information and things that I appreciated what Nicki had to share, because I think it was good information and helps us kind of put things into perspective of where we're going from here. So I appreciate that very much. But the next Posh is in 2 weeks, and Pat's going to do another drink. So we will be getting out the ingredients of that, and we want you to make your drink along with us, along with Pat, as he puts that together. I didn't purchase things to make the drink last time, but Holly did, and it was
amazing.
Awesome.
Yes, best margarita I've ever had. So.
And is that going to be on the Friday afternoon time like it was last time?
It'll be, it's a Tuesday evening.
Oh, Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be 5 o'clock. Do you remember the date, Holly?
June 2nd.
Yeah.
June 2nd at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Becky?
Yes.
I just also wanted to recognize our wonderful school system here in Andover. They did what they could